Hi there, Cat Monster. Okay, so this week's video is more, I wanted to demonstrate how I do watercolor because, like, even when I was on TikTok before Oracle took over, you couldn't really see the whole picture, and so you didn't know how I was mixing colors and the water control and all of that. So it is a little more of a showing the process kind of video, so it is a little longer. Also, it's very just kind of chill music, some voiceovers and things. But also, just like full disclosure, during the filming of this video and the next 3 that are coming out, because I've been working on simultaneous things, I have had one of my gaming buddies pass away, so rest in peace, Sav. My partner and I broke up, and then the world is burning. And so it's gonna be very whimsical from now on because reality sucks at the moment. But it is what it is, and we're making do. But I just needed a calm mental thing. Over exciting, it is just not gonna happen this time. So I hope you enjoy the video. We are painting the Patreon miniature paintings that the top tier members get every month. This is the February and April's. Yeah, so mice with flowers and eyes. Yeah, I hope you enjoy it. Alright, so I thought that maybe these, at least the mice, needed to be gone over with a liner, because we'll lose all those little cute lines until I go back in with a detailing brush and watercolor, and I don't want to do that on all of these, if I'm being honest. I kind of just want a bit of like harder lines, thin harder lines, because this is a 0.03. I was trying to get my black one to work, but I've been willing that to work for too long. I just need to get down to the art supply store and get another pack. I just have not, because they close at 6. That's ridiculous. Things closing at 6 is just the stupidest thing in the world. I'm sorry. It's like, if you have a 9-to-5 job, you don't even have a chance to get there. I have UV glitter. So it's like, what's the point? But yeah. So I'm going to give these a little outline, and then we're going to go and do some color washes. So what we have right here, in case you can't tell, is a little harvest mouse. They're all harvest mice. And a tulip with a dandelion, and then with snapdragon skulls. And yes, that is what snapdragons look like in their seed pod form. I know you can't really see what we're doing here. Let me see if I can take you off of this. I don't typically do like one hard stroke. I always like to allow it to have some variant. It does a little bit of shading. I like the sketchy lines. So that is my thing. This is not how you want to do things, by all means. Leave out the layers, leave out the lining. You want the softer watercolor look, but I just prefer to have some lines. Now this isn't not a sepia. Is it a sepia? No, warm gray. So it's not quite black because, again, we're working with what we got. And the art supply shop is all the way over in Squirrel Hill, and I don't want to. These guys have like little tiny hands. They have the cutest little hands. I love mice and rat hands. That might be a personal opinion of mine, but I think they're adorable. They're so small. I'm gonna whisper since it just came out of ASMR. No. I hope you enjoy the sweet, sweet watercolor time. What I'm doing here, and I realize this isn't the best angle to see what I'm doing with the watercolor palette itself, but I just kind of mixed together a brown and a yellow to get this mousy color. And I'm laying it a little heavier in with the tails and in areas where I, need some more shadowing, like around the bases of the body and when it's next to anything, putting in a little variance with a little more saturation, less water, more of the color. And I'm doing the same thing with the green bits, where it's a more saturated, less watered down situation. Leaving out some of the areas where I want to keep it white or do a lighter wash, trying to keep that in mind as you paint. But it's kind of like you just paint in the shadows. There's a lot of ways to get highlights. Definitely one way is to just leave a white spot or to use something like fetching fluid or masking fluid to get that same, where you just mask that area off and so you don't get any color in that, and then you can paint over it freely, rub it off later, and, have that white spot. Another way you can do it is actually doing lighter washes. And then going in and doing darker areas, more pigmented, less water over certain areas to get deeper shades. And then your brain will just automatically look at that lighter shade and say, oh, that's a highlight. Because, when we look at highlights, unless it has like a direct light spot, typically highlights aren't like white. But your brain will correct that anyways. Right. So these guys are going to be like a little brownie gray, which we got going on over here. These are snapdragon skulls with seed pods. Terrifying little guys, aren't they? I typically will paint in a lot of lighter washes and then go over and paint my darker colors on top of that. And it does wonders for using as highlights. Do I use fetching fluid and stuff? Absolutely. You know, there's sometimes, or even just if I'm trying to like mask off an area to be able to paint a different color, also an option. Another technique that I'm using here with the tulip is to lay down those light washes, like I had said, exactly where like I want the water to behave. And with watercolor paper, it will stay in place as long as you have like a level surface. And then you can go back in and touch it with more pigmented, less watered down areas, and it will bleed into it, giving it more of that ombre effect where it, you know, gradients into one to another. And I use that here on the tulip, and then we'll do a wash over it. And the areas that I'm painting will end up being the shadows. I used using the light gray micro pen here. I'm drawing in all of the little flower bits of the dandelion. I do go over it later with a white pen just to add like some glossiness to it, so that the light reflects differently. But you know, I'm not gonna paint white on white paper, and I didn't do a dark enough of a background to like really make it stand out tremendously. But it definitely, you still get that illusion of it being a white dandelion, even without specifically doing white, because you know your brain fills that in. But I enjoyed doing this dandelion portion with putting in the different spikies. Very fun. Definitely going to do this again. This little mouse was adorable. All these mice, most of them are painted. Not all these mice. Two of the mice are painted from reference. The Snapdragon mouse was, I used a reference picture of a mouse yawning. My mouse looks very metal, like he's screaming with his little snapdragon skulls, which I personally think is absolutely adorable. But trying to show you it, the white here, but definitely not showing up. Not in this lighting, and not with that camera angle. But you know, one regret I do have about these snapdragons is I didn't water down the pigment enough, and I went too much into the more pigmented section there at the bottom. Probably could have been a little lighter, but it is what it is. Not much I can do about that. But yeah. You can kind of see here how pigmented that red is that I'm about to do the tulip with. It's a much darker, much more pigmented, saturated situation than previously when I had done the lighter wash. But again, it will act, the lighter wash areas will act more as highlights in some areas, shading in another. My heater just kicked on. I'm very sorry about that. I cannot help that it is as loud as the sun. It'll be evident more once it dries down how that will affect things. Now, one thing you have to be aware of is there's some pigments, and this differentiates from pigment to pigment within watercolor palettes, on how much a color will lift when you reactivate it with water. For the reds in this palette, that's not a problem. However, those greens, they lift like crazy. If I was to get them wet right now, run my brush over it, it would lift up and smear and leak into things, and it's something you have to keep in mind on which is gonna happen. So, you see this kept going in there because he's wet. And you just keep getting a thirsty brush and you can get a lot of that off and then like retouch it up. Once that dries, and then we'll do a little bit brown on him again, and then that one is done, and I believe this one's done. I wanted this one to be something different than what it is, but it is what it is. It did not come out how I wanted it to in my head. I really almost think this looks more like a slow laurel. The tiniest slow laurel in the world. I mean, honestly, with watercolor, you don't really mix for quantity. You want a decent amount of, like, variation in it. That's what, honestly, is a good thing. Like, my one friend was planting blueberries. They're not all gonna be the same color. You know? So you more just mix for consistency and your shade that you want to work in. But that shade is going to vary around your painting. Especially if you're doing large ones. There we go. It's better. I mean, still looks like a slow laurel. But it's okay. I don't think Patrick will mind. I know I said these weren't going to be creepy, but I don't know if I can exactly promise that anymore. With the eyeballs, I am just going to be doing a lot of light color washes and going over them. The areas wet, so there'll be a lot of like color bleeding and just a lot of that gradient fading out sort of situation. In the pupils here that I'm showing, I've got the area wet previously and just contained it into the pupil area, since I decided to color the pupils different than the irises. What that allows is for the color blooming to happen, where you get those gradients and it bleeds into each other, and you don't really have to worry about shading because it does the shading for you. It's one of my favorite techniques. You just, sometimes it gets out of control and, you know, it'll go way too far, but at that point you just take a thirsty brush and dab it on there, and it'll pull back some of that pigment in the water, and it'll be fine. It's fine. It's watercolor. It's meant to have all the textures and the things. It's good. Now here, I just want to give a quick shout out to my Patreon members. Thank you so much for all of your support, and thank you so much to everybody that has subscribed lately here on YouTube. You don't know how much that means to me. I do hope that we get more members, but loud and proud for all of you right now. Love you guys. Right, these were really fun to paint. Very relaxing, very calming, very much what I needed. And I hope you enjoy the final results. So thanks so much for hanging out and making it to the end. If you could please subscribe, it helps out the channel. We're trying to reach that 1K mark so we can monetize. Yeah, let's do it. But yeah, I hope you enjoyed it, and I will see you on the next one. Bye, space.